when he goes. And he's joining us right now, Dr. Rob Wittman, Congressman, Republican, 1st District, Virginia. He's chairman of the House Armed Services, Sea Power, and Projection Forces Subcommittee, a key slot on the House Armed Services Committee. The jurisdiction of the Sea Power and Projection Forces Subcommittee currently includes the Navy, the Marine Corps Research, Development and Acquisition Programs, and Naval Research and Air Force, and I could go on for 10 minutes, but it's a big deal. Congressman, good to have you with us.
John, great to be with you this morning. Thanks again for the opportunity.
8:32. What are the Democrats going to say when we get 4.6789 or 5% growth, which is going to lead to an annual 3% growth? Remember, Dr. Wittman, this is these are the Democrats who were telling us 2 years ago that the new U.S. economy was 1% and that was fine, that we were going to get 1% growth. It was a new normal. You know, things have changed, and you couldn't get to 3%. Now we're going to get to 5%, and the tax cuts haven't even hit. What are they going to say now?
I think the only thing that they can say is that the policies of this Republican Congress, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the reduction of regulations, the balance that is being created with the government and businesses, and the thing that I've heard most often from businesses is just let us use the innovation and creation that we have at our avail without interference from the government, and let us do the things that we know best to do, and they'll create an economy that is good for everyone, John. And you know, the Democrats are going to look at this and go, not only do we have these growth rates, but we have record low unemployment across the spectrum, and for African Americans, for Hispanics, for women, in all these different areas. I mean, you look at it, there is not a single area in this economy that you can look at and go, oh, this is bad, or this is going in the wrong direction. So I think you look at it and say the policies that we put in place are good for everyone. They're good for the economy, and they are resulting in a better quality of life for everyone across the United States. Nobody's being left behind. If you looked at what happened in the previous administrations, you saw where there was increasing unemployment in areas. Now we have reversed that trend. So I think the future that we see in front of us is a bright one. We just have to make sure that we continue along that path. As you know, we've got another bill coming up when we get back that will do even more on the tax cuts realm, that will make the individual tax cuts permanent, which we think is critical. We think that those things have to be permanent in order for people to have certainty, and for them to make the long-term commitments, knowing that their paychecks are not just only going to be bigger this year or next year or the year after, but for the period after that.
Congressman, walk us through the permanent bill, because one of the arguments the Democrats have been using on the campaign stump is, you know, these personal tax cuts, they're very meager, they're very small, it's crumbs, but they said, you know, they expire in 7 years. The corporate tax cuts are permanent because that's what the Republicans really cared about, and they're just going to have these personal tax cut expire. Walk us through what your legislation would be and when it would be in order to make these permanent, like we did the corporate tax cuts.
Sure. Well, what it will do, John, is for all of the changes that we made to the individual tax code, it would make those tax cuts permanent. So the changes that were there and the dollars that people are seeing in their paychecks right now would become permanent under this legislation. We would also make some fine-tuning adjustments. As you know, like anything else, there were some elements of the tax bill that created some concern. So we're looking at all those different issues to put them into this bill to make these individual tax cuts permanent, and to make sure that we make some other deduction refinements there to make sure that we're clear about how deductions can be operationalized by taxpayers, making sure that there's fairness and equity there. There are a few issues there. Those are looking to be corrected in this bill.
So when would this happen? Like, when do you see it actually getting passed, and then how would it get through the Senate, and how would the president sign it? Just walk me through the timing so I understand how it impacts the midterms.
Sure. Well, John, one thing is it should be passed now. If we were actually in Washington where we need to be getting appropriations bills done and getting this done, it would be done now. But short of that, if the Speaker doesn't call us back, which I have asked him to do, he needs to call us back into town. But if he doesn't, then it wouldn't get done until probably the second or third week of September. That would be the time frame. Then it would go from the House over to the Senate. The Senate would then take it up, and hopefully it would get passed and go to the president. Remember, going to the Senate, it would take 60 votes. So if it doesn't get 60 votes, which I would hope that you'd have some Democrats over there that may have voted against the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act bill, which we know all of them over there did, but one of the things they pointed to as the thing they didn't like about the bill was that the individual tax cuts weren't permanent. Well, now they have an opportunity to act on their words and to stand by what they said that they would be in favor of, and that is to make these tax cuts permanent. So hopefully they can find 60 votes over there. If not, then you'd have to use reconciliation in order to get this through, which would relegate this to the next Congress in 2019. So that's the scenario for this to find final passage.
So the only way to get it done then, you're thinking in October of 2018 in this Congress, is it's going to pass the House when it comes up, and you think that's going to be the first week in October? Is that a good gauge here?
Yeah, I would say somewhere with there. When we get back, there are 2 legislating weeks in September, and then we have some time in October. So I would imagine by the time it gets out of the House, gets over to the Senate to be taken up, is probably October time frame before it's taken up in the Senate.
Right. So then it passes the House in September. It goes to the Senate in October. McConnell's got to get it in there. They're going to debate it, and then I would think if John McCain can make it back, all 51 Republican senators are going to vote in favor of it. That means they're going to have to get 9 Democrats. It's going to be interesting for those that are in red states like Air Claire McCaskill, Joe Donnelly, John Tester, Heidi Heitkamp, and others, Florida, and several others, Manchin, here where I am by West Virginia. It's going to be interesting to see them, how they're going to spin voting in opposition to making the personal tax cut permanent when they're campaigning and saying one of the problems with the tax cut is that it's not permanent. Right. I cannot wait. 2 things I can't wait for: to see what Nancy Pelosi has to say today about unprecedented economic growth numbers, and what Joe Manchin is going to say about why he's not going to vote. Or all of these Democrats in these red states. It's going to be an interesting dance to see what goes on. 20 past the hour, TGIF. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network live today, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Spent some of the time yesterday in West Virginia, and I'm predicting that Patrick Morrisey is going to defeat Joe Manchin. I'm the only one predicting that right now in the U.S., and that's a pundit. I am predicting that. In fact, I don't think it's going to be, based on the people I talk to, I don't think it's going to be close. Let's get to, and we are with Congressman Rob Wittman, Republican, 1st District of Virginia. Congressman, the Rosenstein impeachment thing that the Freedom Caucus put out, that has just gone by the wayside. Did you think that was prudent?
Well, listen, I understand that. I understand their frustration with Rod Rosenstein and the delays in providing information to their committees. I understand that. And I think there's a very, very high standard for impeachment. I think you have to be careful about how you go about that, because the word impeachment gets thrown around a lot these days. And we do know that the definition is high crimes and misdemeanors. Those are very, I think, high standards. They're reserved for behaviors that I don't believe include what Rod Rosenstein is has been accused of. Listen, I believe the list of things that he's accused of are things that are indeed part of what hasn't happened, but I'm just not convinced that it rises to the level of where it qualifies for impeachment. So that's where I am on this. Obviously, the articles of impeachment have been filed, and anybody as a member of Congress can do that, and that's out there to be considered by the Speaker. And remember, the only person in the House that can actually allow those articles of impeachment to come to the floor is the Speaker. So he is in full control of whether that comes to the floor. Now, it does, I think, highlight the discussion that needs to take place about what hasn't happened within the Justice Department, the information that needed to come forward, that some of it still hasn't come forward yet, or that they are slow playing this information, because a lot of it, as we've seen as it comes out, is very embarrassing to the Justice Department, the FBI, and other agencies. So I understand that. I think, though, that we all have to be very mindful of the very high standard that the definition of impeachment entails within the Constitution, and understand that it is reserved for those instances where you have those, a clear situation where there's high crimes or misdemeanors.
Well, and the precedent's been set because Eric Holder and his Justice Department, I think Loretta Lynch was a deputy at the time. Remember the Congress tried to get documents from Eric Holder and the DOJ on, I think it was the Fast and Furious thing where they ran the guns, and they couldn't. He just didn't. He stonewalled that, and nothing happened. So I mean, this isn't. Just so we know, this isn't anything new. Facebook stock. Just very quickly, I just got this in. Facebook stock immediately. We understand that the sell orders on Wall Street when that bell hits are off the charts. It's going to take another huge hit today. I just got that in over the wire. Congressman Wittman, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you bring up about Eric Holder, and that's that in the track that Congress took then is to say that you didn't provide the documents, you refuse that, you're held in contempt of court. That's certainly an option to be taken with this. Although with this, Rod Rosenstein has been trickling out those documents. So as you said, but in that situation too, it was frustrating because the Congress found Eric Holder in contempt, both civil contempt and criminal contempt. Of course, those findings go where? They go to the Justice Department. And, of course, the Justice Department then is the sole determiner as to whether or not they pursue that. And obviously, Eric Holder is not going to pursue those charges against himself. So it is a frustrating process for Congress to get what we need out of these federal agencies, especially the Justice Department. So I understand the frustration, but as we've seen historically, the other paths don't always lead to Congress getting the documents that it's wanted, even if it's a complete refusal like we saw with Eric Holder.
Well, I think you're right. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I kind of agree with you on impeachment. I think that word is thrown around, and I mean, there's no crime here. There's perhaps you can go the contempt route, but the Justice Department under both parties has in control has had a history of this. So we'll see what plays out. Now, speaking of the Freedom Caucus, Jim Jordan put his hat in the ring yesterday. I believe he's going to run for Speaker should the Republicans keep the House, which is going to be very, very close, I believe. So here's my question. I have to ask it to everybody. If the Republicans maintain control of the House, Rob Wittman, are you going to vote for Jim Jordan, Kevin McCarthy, Steve Scalise, or someone else?
Well, John, just as you point out, the first priority is we have to maintain the majority. So I think all the discussion about Speaker is pretty premature until we have the majority. And when we get back after the November elections, holding the majority, at that point, I will listen to all the candidates, and there may be more. I'll listen to all the candidates and make my determination then. But my sole focus right now is I've got to make sure that I am successful in my election in order to, first of all, have an opportunity to vote for Speaker, because that's not going to happen until after the November elections, and then for us to hold the majority. So my focus is winning my election and then helping others to win their elections. So
have you made a commitment now to any of the candidates specific? Have you made a commitment to second in command to Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, being that you're in leadership? Are you saying you have not made a commitment to him?
I have had conversations with all these individuals that are interested in running, but no, I have not made any commitments. All
right, Congressman Rob Wittman, remaining uncommittal. As you say, first order of business is you've got to get reelected, and then the Republicans have to maintain control of the House. Otherwise, you're going to be electing a minority leader rather than a. That's it. Yeah, that's it. It's
all this banner back and forth about candidates for Speaker are all premature. We've got to, first of all, win the House, and in order to vote for Speaker, I have to win my race. That's where my focus is.
And how does your race look now? I know you don't take anything for granted, but how does it look?
Well, we are working hard every day. I'll be out there today contacting voters, talking to them, asking for their support. So we are doing everything possible, John, to win this race and to win it in the right way. Okay, Rob Wittman, Congressman Rob Wittman, 1st District, Republican, Virginia. That's kind of the Central Virginia area, and Fredericksburg and all that good stuff. You can get more information on his what he's doing in Congress by going to whitman.house.gov, whitman.house.gov, and for campaign info, you can go to robwhitman.com, 2 T's, robwhitman.com. Congressman, always a pleasure to have you on, sir. Thank you. John, great to be on with you.
Have a great weekend. robwhitman.com, John Fredericks Radio Network. When we get back, we're going to have the job number. We're going to have the GDP number. Is it going to hit 5%? And how low can you go? Facebook going to be plummeting again today. Stay with us.
See for under $25 a month. I'm SelectQuote agent Dan Savino. And believe me, if SelectQuote isn't shopping for your life insurance, you're probably paying too much.
For your free quote, call 800-607-3551. That's 800-607-3551. 800-607-3551. Or go to SelectQuote.com. Since 1985, we shop, you save.
Get full details on the example policy at SelectQuote.com/commercials. Or price could vary depending on your health, issuing company, and other factors. Not available in all